Eshu Elegwana Kosi Were Awo Onlo Uto Ne Iwo Ada Afanbo Osi Obatala Mi Ita Ni Ebo Onili Obane Shu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, uncovers fools. The one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scattered to feed poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu, Aboru, Aboye, Abushishe, Ashe. May I ever reach a room. May our ever be accepted. May our ever allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Divine, all blessed greetings and salutations. You are now sitting live with the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elogun Oloye Hoodoo Obeya Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, universal, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective. Understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, my affirmation, reverberation, reiteration, and it is my ever living reality. All is a blessing is crucial to the very foundation of my inner standing, my teaching, my walk, my works along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we are challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother Father Earth, and it is my personal place of power and inner standing, the place from where I begin, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co create my divine, all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. Today is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, and I am emanating and vibrating with you now live, virtually, verbally, cosmically, quantum, universally from this working temple of the House of the Divine Prince. Thai potions, Hoodoo Central in this legendary, historic, beautiful, and most enchanted city in America, New Orleans, Louisiana, the land of my ancestors and those who came before me along this spiritualist hoodoo obeya life path and journey, passing down the great obeah stick along with the knowledge of the life-giving herbs, roots, plants, rituals, spirits, minerals, and indeed the legacy, culture, and tradition, the history of our sacred stories. Please do now stop and take the time to like, follow, please follow, subscribe on all available platforms. Most certainly blogtalkradio.com, BLOG talkradio.com / the hyphen divine hyphen prince. Remember to add that hyphen, that dash mark, to pull up the correct URL. You can also please like, follow, subscribe, reshare via my YouTube at www.youtube.com / Thai. V like Victor, OO, D like David, OOTYE. All is truly and indeed a blessing. And Understanding that the creation of sacred space is critical to all that we do, all we are, present now and forever, is critical in this most present moment in time space. The creation of inner sacred space, mental sacred space, personal sacred space, and of course, that then manifests itself through our outward demonstration in our world, in our environment, in our universe, but most certainly through our demonstration. I am because my creators are. I am because my ancestors are. All powerful, open, and receptive to all that operates for my good here and now in this most present moment in time space. It's a very powerful mantra, very powerful prayer, very powerful chant, very powerful tool for guided, self guided meditation. I am, I am, and you breathe and say I am until you feel it, until you believe it, until you understand it at every cellular, molecular level of your being, because my creators are. And I like creators. It removes the politics, it removes the religion, it removes a jockeying for position of names and naming something that is indeed unnameable. And so I am because my creators are all powerful, open, receptive to all that operates for my good. Here and now, in this most present moment in time space, I create and recreate the reality that mirrors my best interests. I create and recreate the reality that mirrors my best interests. I am releasing and let go of those things which impede my progress. Some of y'all need that this morning. I am releasing and let go of those things which impede my progress. The fire that dwells within consumes all but the truth. And I am grateful. I am grateful. We have never lost our connection to God. We have never lost our connection to spirit. We have never lost our connection, indeed, to the universe. We've lost our awareness of our connection to nature. We've put up barriers in the illusion of barriers between ourselves and indeed nature. And there is no voodoo without nature. There is no Ifa without nature. There is no living in, practicing within, adhering to the traditions, the beliefs, the cultural, the lifestyle of Aboriginal and indigenous traditions without really realigning ourselves with nature, standing up in nature. For indeed, we are nature. Spiritual power and knowledge lies in its efficacy. That is, its ability to produce and manifest reliable, tangible, lasting manifestation and results right here and right now in this moment in time space. All else is vanity, all else is ego, all else is conjecture, all else is poetic language and talk, all else is an illusion. If we cannot what I like to say, result oriented work. If we cannot apply it, manifest it, demonstrate it in reliable, tangible manifestation and results right here and now in this most present moment in time space. So, on a day like this, oh, on a white day, and some of you understand the color schemes, this is a day that I meditate on those powers, those principles, those energies of expansion. It puts in mind for me the cosmic consciousness, beyond just our physicalness, beyond just our earthliness, beyond just our universal spirituality and tradition, but a more cosmic awareness of our presence in the universe. And I'm certainly grateful for those who are present with me. Greetings, Enzo Khalifa. Abushishe Ashe to you as well, beloved. Come on in. I certainly appreciate you. Martha Martinez, certainly I appreciate you. Come on in. I'm grateful for your attendance and your presence with me here today on another live power lunch with the Divine Prince, Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo secrets and recipes. I'm always grateful for my consistent listeners and participants, both here by way of the STREAMYARD platform, which gives me access to all my social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, uh, Blogger, whoever I'm forgetting, LinkedIn, etc. But certainly YouTube, my EarthCam page, my personal Facebook page, my Blog Talk Radio page. Um, and I'm certainly grateful for you as well, JP Terrell. Thank you for being present with me. I want to talk, again, I want to share a little bit more on a ritual white day such as this about the nature of Orishamla, about the nature of Obatala. And Obatala, in my opinion, is greatly underrated. We don't give Obatala the acknowledgement, the honor, the respect, the praise that we give Legba or Eshu or Oshun or Yemaya, excuse me, who we treat in a very, I'm choosing my words carefully. We want to activate those deities to do things for us. We want to seek those powers, to help us out, in a crunch. And it's not very common for us to sort of see the same energy as it relates to Obatala, who is said to have fashioned the body of humanity from clay, the potter's wheel, but also fashioned the heads of humanity, which includes, first and foremost, in Yoruba language, culture, tradition, practice, Ori, your head, but most certainly your consciousness, your fifth, sixth, seventh, and connection to higher level chakra centers, the epicenter of our human existence, sort of radiates out from our brain from a biological perspective, but from our consciousness, in every other range of our experience, how we feel, how we decide and think and respond, and our sense of identity and personality, as I shared yesterday, is greatly rooted in something that's not quite physical, not quite organic, but exists between the worlds, if you will. It exists in the clouds, in the air, in the space, in the elements of that which exists but is not quite seeable, tangible, measurable, if you will. How do we measure our happiness? How do we measure our sense of uh, completeness, our sense of individualness? There's no physical measure for that. There's no biological measure for that. And so, as I was taught, and when I think about Obatala, it's very hard for me not to think about and show honor to Chief Ogun Sena Babatunde, who, you know, really left a mark on how I think about Obatala, as I like to do from a quantum metaphysical perspective. There is indeed no creature, no matter on earth, living or dead, that is able to tell us the exact origins of the chief of divinity, Orishala, as we have come to know as Obatala. And Obatala traveled the Middle Passage, made its way across the Great Water, um, much like those deities I just mentioned earlier, but masked itself early on in almost all things white as we associate them in ritual, ceremony, tradition, practice, most certainly in the church, the Black church, but quickly masked itself behind the avatars of, in some cases, John the Baptist, and in other cases, Moses. And indeed, when we go back in our ancestral Rolodex, we weren't always referencing, in many cases, we were not referencing sort of these Christian saints, these Christian deities, but only utilize them as avatars, representatives of a more ancient memory that our ancestors carried with them in their minds, in their bosoms, about this great deity, this great power. And so the exact origins of the chief divinity Orishala or Obatala is in dispute. And there are several conflicting stories surrounding the mystery of the divinity. God created the positive and dynamic powers of the heavens known as Irumoles. Irumoles. IRUN like Nancy. M like Mary. OLES. Irumoles. The great and extremely positive divinities led by Obatala. These Irumole, Ifa, Orumila, Baba Agbon Mi Regun, Ogun, Shango, Eshu, Oro, Yemowo, and many others. In the same fashion, Olodumare formed in the beginning of creation, Iwase, the alternatives of the positive and dynamic powers, negative spiritual vibrations called Ajagun Orun, the punitive knights of heaven. And the divinities are entities created by Olodumare to justify his own glory, nature, and his phenomenal status in creation. Divinities are creatures that never saw the beginnings of days, nor will they see the end of life. They are immortal. I suggest that they are primordial powers, the Irumoles. So they are immortal and permanent in their being. They share the same original characteristics that we associate with God in many of the world traditions, which signifies that they cannot change or be tarnished by era or age. They share the infinite divine qualities and completeness and wholeness of Olodumare. The name Obatala, Oba Ti O Ni Allah, Oba Ti O Ni Allah, meaning the king in the white apparel, the Lord of the white cloth, the king that brought humans into being, or the king with distinctive boundary. He is also known as Orishala, Orishanla, which means the great divinity, or the one of most grandeur. Irumales, however, should not be viewed as men or women because their status, their images cannot be defined in terms of natural physical structures like humanity. Since Olodumare could not be seen either as male or female, hence the Irumale taking after him are the embodiment of perpetual glory and reveal themselves in whatever form they see fit. The male female man woman relationship of Obatala depends on the Odu in question, how Obata shows up as mama or papa, as grandma or grandpapa shows up dependent on the Odu in question. And these Orisha, these Irumole, these powers, creation itself is written in the Odu. Hence, there is no voodoo without the do. There is no Ifa without the Odus. There is no um, book. There is no Bible. There is no Quran save for the do as they manifest on the board and speak the parables, the prophecies, the stories to us, and then those are interpreted by tradition, by the practitioners um, within the various paths in ATR. And these Odus are ancient, older than the Bible, older than many parables and prophecies that we've sort of amalgamated and intermixed into the world language, if you will, but they are interpreted specific to the event, the person, place, or thing that is being read at any given moment. And in one stanza of Ogun Meiji, it is stated that Obatala is a woman. And further down in the Odu, it is said that Obatala is an ageless divinity that came into Iwa room together with a host of other potent Irumale. Ogunda Meiji claimed that Orishala had no father and that she was the mother of all creatures in creation, while Ogun was the father of all creatures. In other words, they both were considered to be directly created by Olodumare. And this was the main reason for Orishanla being viewed as mother goddess of Iwarun, the physical existence, and why Ogun was named Oniwarun, Onire Oko Iyo, meaning the Lord of Iwaru, the leader of Ire, husband of Eyo. Traditions reveal that it was Orishala who was the mother of Obanla and Obalafun. Both of them were men. Orishala had other children, amongst them Yemoya. Yemoya gave birth to Oshun, the granddaughter of Orishanla, and that's why Oshun is seen as younger than Yemoya. Yemoya, a more maternal, mature mother. Oshun is often depicted as a young, flirty, vivacious, dancing bit of a diva, granddaughter of Obatala. And Orishanla, or Orisha Allah, had another daughter called Ifansiki. Ifansiki came of age and married, and one day Ogun was celebrating one of his annual festivals in which he was drunk, and as a consequence of a joke wine and alcohol entered the eye of Ifansiki, and she became blind. And Orishanla went to consult Ifa to know why such a horrific event happened to her. And Orumila made the divination, and the Odu Ogunda Igara appeared. And Orumila bowed down and knocked his head on the ground 3 times for Ifa, saying, Aburu Aboye, obeisance to you, O divinity, while his devotees who were with him responded, Agbo, Agato, meaning we are live, we live long with wisdom and understanding. And Orumila asked Orishamla Ibru Igara Wo Lo Fi Da Alan Iyan Yi O, meaning what kind of challenges is facing the owner of the Odu. And Orishana replied and told Ifa how Ogun poured Jinn in the eyes of her daughter Ifan Siki and how Ifan Siki went blind. And this was the challenges that they continued to face, the fight, the struggle that they continued to face metaphorically, mythologically until this day. And without mincing words, Orumila replied, Bi awo ba kin fani aaki fawo ni ttd oni oloni, meaning if the initiated one bless another initiated, the blessed one will return the blessing until this day. And that is, if one Ifa devotee greets another Ifa devotee, the greeted one must return the greeting. And that's really why we say those who are initiating the tradition, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe. It has its roots in the telling of this story. And Orumila instructed Obatala or Orishanla, according to the Odu, to bring 5 snails as a sacrifice. The blood water from the snail will be used to cure the blindness of Ifan Seki, and water from the snail is called Omi Ero. Orumila instructed Obatala to drop a little Omi Ero into the eyes of the daughter, and she would regain her sight. And so Obatala did all what was expected and followed the advice of Ifa, and indeed Ifan Seki regained her sight. And from that moment, gin or alcohol became a taboo for worshippers of Orishala or Obatala. And Obatala is still today seen as a sober deity. We don't feed alcohol, rum, gin to Obatala. Ogun and Ifa to ensure a sound mental state, a good spiritual state, and physical fitness during worship and day-to-day activities. Obatala, Ifa, and Ogun worshippers should refrain from drinking alcohol, smoking, behaving contrary to what is godly. They should be modest. They should be of chaste behavior, if you will, true children of Ifa, two children of Ogun, and certainly Obatala. One of Ogun's praise names is never drunk. And even in voodoo ceremony in New Orleans and in Haiti, you see Ogun consume large quantities of gin or rum and never get drunk, never become certainly intoxicated. And it's said to be one of the sort of the test of someone attempting to fake a possession of Ogun, their ability to be unaffected, if you will, by alcohol. Some even splash alcohol in their face or set alcohol on fire on their bodies in the course of a ceremony under the possession of Ogun. And so they should be modest and moderate, if you will. Some of these words make me nervous in the political context of America right now, conservative and modest and moderate. But certainly they should also be careful about things like salt, sugar, oil, in their diets. Indeed, children of Obatala, Ifa, and Ogun. I know so many. Um, May he rest in Orun. I'm thinking now of Awo Ifa Sakin, our beloved elder and brother who passed a few years back, who used to come and participate here in ceremonies for Obatala here at the house, and how he struggled with diabetes. severe diabetes in his uh, remaining years that he had of life here. It was a great struggle. So be careful with those things. They are indeed taboo for children of Obatala, salt, sugar, and oil. And so we not only invoke these deities, these powers, these traditions for that matter, uh, for well-being, for blessings and great luck and to get things that we sort of believe we need, want, or desire in the Western world. I beg of you to not negate the deeper ramifications within these traditions, which indeed are moralistic, character building, about self improvement, involvement of the self, as indeed a baby God becoming a big God, as indeed a baby human becoming a more mature and adult human, and understand that these aren't just things that we take to the altar, as the old folks used to say, that we just do and cover in ritual and ceremony, but are absolutely the homework that I often speak of, that we move in, that we operate in each and every day. There's always something in voodoo to do. There's always something in Ifa to do. There's always something in Akan tradition to do. There's always something in Aboriginal and indigenous traditions to do. I would dare say, Queen Sheba, greetings, beloved. Love that picture. Love that avatar. There is indeed more I would offer that we do that is sort of required of us within the dynamics of ATR than how we sort of view the traditional world religions. You have your requirements on for Juma. You have your your obligations for Sunday, which some of you take very lightly. You have your penitence and your obligations in the major world religions of Christianity and Judaism and Islam and the like. But indeed, when I think about Hinduism, for example, many of you may have enjoyed the documentary with Morgan Freeman that I shared in the 11 o'clock hour before the show. Um, and I found it eerily similar, the references between what they were doing in India and their reference on ancestors and the ancestors' involvement in our reality and with the ATR traditions, um, or the mother continent of Africa. They were eerily similar for those who may not have been exposed to that before. And so I offer you to watch that documentary at your leisure, and really pay attention to. I often try and present um, documentaries that sort of help to give some confirmation, some foundation to what we discuss in this space, to expansion, to expand on how universal ATR tradition really is. It's just not given the credit. The origins of certain words and behaviors and rituals are lost, or absorbed or appropriated or commercialized or bastardized. And we find that they all have their roots in humanities. Therefore, they all have their roots in Africa. And we understand that the Black woman is God. The Black woman is God. Can you hear me, Queen Sheba? Enzo Khalifa, can I be heard? Hafas, can y'all hear me? Martha Martinez, Craig Burns, is my audio coming through? The black woman is God. Thus, all humanity is born God. It's born divine in nature, just as we are born human in nature. We're not born adults. We're not born mature. We're not born great masters. We have to grow. We have to mature. We have to develop, even in our divine natures. We are living in the existence of the illusion of a challenge between our flesh and our spirit, between our clay nature. It is said that Obatala crafted the bodies of humanity on a potter's wheel in our clay nature, but then the spirit, the God, also had to be infused to give life to the clay nature, to animate the clay nature, to make it something other than the rock or the tree. Now, in traditional indigenous ATR, African tradition, and I would say indigenous world belief, we understood uh, what's called animism, that all things physical in the creative universe of Earth have a spirit, have a nature. So we understand the wood that's then, carved into a drum has a spirit within it. We understand that the rock, and not just the rose quartz and the hematite and the and the uh, lapis lazuli, but all the rock have a spirit in it, have a nature in it. We understand that the lake has a personality. We understand that the river has a deity that exists within it that we can interact with, that can be beneficial to us, but also can be oppositional to us if not respected, if not acknowledged. One of the things that I love about Aboriginal and Indigenous culture here in the so-called Americas is their relationship to nature, to the plant, to the tree, to the rock, to the water, and understanding that we coexist in this space. And so we coexist with nature in our bodies as gods. We coexist with our DNA structure and our generational uh, uh, physical curses and biology that we seek to overcome, that we seek to improve on, while still developing the spirit body, the consciousness, the person, the inner part that we say is more important than what we look like on the outside. But without that outside vessel, vehicle to sort of move around in, then we are ancestors. Okay. Then we're now in the realm of something other than just our humanness. Thank you all for the acknowledgement. Uh, you all know when I say that I like to get a little acknowledgement from the listening audience, and I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate everyone who's here, friends, family, blood relatives, uh, internet community that I've known since 2005. I'm certainly grateful for all of you all who continue to show love and support for this show, for this platform, for this podcast. It is indeed for you that I certainly do this. And when I'm not present, I certainly get the response from email, from social media, from texts and phone calls, as to why I'm not present. So I understand the value of me being present and doing in this and offering this. And so I'm grateful for my my Amen Corner. I'm grateful for my deacons and my missionaries and my high priests and priestess and those who come through and sort of support this revolutionary hoodoo, New Orleans voodoo secrets and recipes. It is indeed voodoo at its historic, um, archaeological, uh, traditional nature, but is indeed voodoo in its modern, present day, global Pan-African context. It is indeed voodoo at its quantum, metaphysical, magical, um, Heka based level, its ability to heal and be a vital tool in our creation and recreation of our reality. We don't have to accept the reality that's presented to us. We don't have to accept the reality that's written for us. And if you aren't already aware, a reality is indeed written for you, pre-written for you. And I'm not talking about God. I'm not talking about the ancestors. I'm talking about the man who does not have a plan, the woman who does not have a plan is always subject to the plan of someone else's plan. So whether you call that a conspiracy theory, whether you call that government, whether you call that shadow government, whether you call it that, some secret order, some extraterrestrial agenda, indeed, if you live and exist in this reality as a God and don't actively co-participate, co-write, co-create in your reality, then you are choosing victim. You are choosing to be like a tree that must endure the weather. Now, the tree, however, has roots, deep grounded roots. And a good tree knows how to bend, knows how to sway, knows how to move with the currents. Or you might be a rock that knows how to plant itself, in position and endures all sorts of weather. So I gave an analogy yesterday, an exercise, if you will, a homework assignment for my meditators, beginners and advanced meditating students in the group to use your imagination and envision nature. Envision yourself as the rock. Envision yourself as a tree. And like a child, use your imagination. Our imaginations, our creative space is the thinnest veil to the real reality of magic and the spirit realm is our imagination. The minute we allow sadness, depression, anxiety, the weather, what's going on in the world to stop us from dreaming, and to stop us from being creative and imagining, you lose your direct connection to spirit. I don't trust people who say they heard from God who don't dream. I don't trust people who say they got a message from the Most High who have no imagination. And certainly I don't trust people who seek to eliminate art, who seek to eliminate music, who seek to eliminate theater, who seek to eliminate sculpture, who seek to eliminate architecture and archaeology from the equation, are seeking to eliminate spirit from the equation and our connection to spirit. So indeed, use your imagination if you have to, and envision yourself in nature, as a spiritual tool for how we stand the weather of our earth-based reality. We are spirit. We are gods having a earthly clay vessel experience for which it is the most important part of who we are, that which is spirit, that is doing a great deal of the work. Our bodies do what they do, and they endure, and they have a time frame and a shelf life. But indeed, our spirits and that energy that is created within the creative space lives beyond the moment, lives beyond the flesh, lives beyond our earth existence. And technology, particularly technology in the last 25 years, has greatly escalated the ability for our imaginations, for our creative minds to envision a reality that will live beyond us. Your Twitter, your uh, Facebook, your post will live beyond you, somewhere in the clouds, somewhere in the stratosphere of this electronic, digital universe. A great deal of what we say and what we post and what we demonstrate today, our great great grandchildren and our ancestral descendants of many generations forward will be able to pull up. And so I'm grateful that they will find you here in this space. I'm grateful that they will find you here sharing in this space. I'm grateful that they will find you out in the internet universe, sharing, teaching, creating, recreating a reality that mirrors your best interests. I'm grateful that many of you in this space are self-employed, self-employable, creating streams of income that will bless your children and your grandchildren and your nieces and your nephews, even if not directly by way of inheritance, most certainly by way of demonstration. They're watching you, and you are setting example of disconnecting from the system. You're setting an example of not necessarily having to punch a clock. You are setting an example of not necessarily having to follow, sort of a universal blueprint that once upon a time was said that we all had to follow in order to be seen as successful, in order to be seen as normal, in order to be seen as getting along in society. And today we find people expanding their imagination. If you don't understand at this point, for those of you who didn't go back and listen to yesterday's broadcast, the broadcast, excuse me, when I talked about Obatala and some of the names and praise names for Obatala, I talked about another translation. Another literal understanding of Obatala is king of spilled, extension, and expansion. And I talked about the galaxy. I talked about the cosmos. I talked about the Milky Way from a quantum metaphysical perspective. Remember, the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. The microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. Even the magical book that the church folks utilize says that as it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth. As it is on earth, so shall it be in heaven. I think there's another scripture that says that which you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. That which is loosed in heaven shall be loosed on earth. And so it speaks on many levels of our understanding to our ability to create and recreate a reality that mirrors our best interests. Queen of Sheba, I'm girlfriend. If you can see me now, I'm holding my hand up in agreement with you. Um, my imagination got me through the hard times. Your ability to see a better time, and not just a better time, but to see a better time that you exist in, that you live in. If you can see it, you can achieve it. If you can imagine it, you can then paint it, sew it, sculpt it, create it, make it happen. But you got to first see something. You got to first have a vision. You have to first have a third eye that is open and unclouded with no cataracts on it, you know. And so you've got to be able to see forward. You got to see beyond. Queen of Sheba, if I will, if you allow me, I also want to borrow from I Saw Past the Violence and the Abuse. Now, today, I see past the violence and abuse, but I also see the violence and the abuse. Hear what I'm offering, because we live in a violent and abusive society, and there are many people who walk around and don't see me. They don't see you, Queen Sheba. They don't see my sister Wapani. They don't see my mama. They don't see the Goddess Initiative. They don't see those of us who were in an abusive scenario. They didn't see the abuse. They didn't want to see the abuse. And so today I have to see the violence and the abuse. And yes, every time I see the violence in the abuse, I see it because I saw it. I see it because I saw it. And so there's a spark of remembrance. There's not a trigger, a spark of remembrance. I no longer experience, quote unquote, the trigger, but there's a spark of remembrance, of recognition. I know that look in a child's face. I know the sound in a man, woman, or child's voice. I know the look in the body language of violence and abuse. And not just the victim, the abuser. The abuser. I can spot an abuser a mile away. I can smell an abuser coming. And sometimes there's no immediate outside dramatic reference or demonstration in the moment. That's how abusers and criminals and people who do bad things get away for some time, because sometimes there is no immediate outward demonstration. And often the abused don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to live the violence and the abuse. And so through my own shadow work, my own homework, I'm at a place where I can sit in the violence and the abuse. I can see the violence and the abuse, and therefore I can identify and have to identify. There's certain people in certain positions and careers in America. I can't speak for my universal listeners in other geographic locations, but at least in America, that are required to report or respond to certain things. And so I'm not required, by law, but as a minister, as a voodoo priest, as a spiritualist, as a grassroots community activist, I'm required to respond to certain things. Maybe not necessarily to report, but certainly to respond to. And so I'm required to respond to violence. I'm required to respond to abuse. So I'm grateful, Queen Sheba, for you sharing that. Um, Greetings, Remy Richardson. Greetings, beloved. God's Initiative, Mr. Rodriguez. Welcome, welcome, Alexis Williams, Martha Martinez, Greg Burns, all my regulars, Enzo Khalifa, Hafas, my cousin Hafas Harris, Martha Martinez, Craig Burns, JP Terrell, beloved, Martha Martinez. Thank you so much for being in attendance. And all of those of you who I cannot necessarily see your name right now, I see you. I see you in the algorithms. I see you in the numbers. And I'm grateful. I'm appreciative for the listener, for the frenemy, for the researcher. Just come on in. I'm grateful. For the copycat, come on in. Just for the lover of the platform, just come on in. Whoever you might be, I acknowledge you. Certainly acknowledge you in this moment. So we sort of, as we do in the Orisha romance, we overgeneralize who and what Obatala is, and what that is and how that shows up, in our world. But the reality is, Obatala sort of pre-birthed all of the Irumale and the Orisha. And so therefore, you can't really make connection with these Loa, these deities, these powers, without grandma, grandpa's hands being somewhere in the work. Even in our color schemes, we see red and white, we see yellow and white, we see blue and white. We see the white showing up, certainly. And there is that symbolic language that's being spoken of. And sometimes many coded languages. White doesn't always mean one thing, but certainly when we see white in ceremony, in ritual, we not only invoke, purity, cleanness, ritual, a sense of ceremony, a sense of tradition, maybe, but also these other coded references to these powers, like Obatala, and certainly John the Baptist was a symbolic, artistic statuette representation of Obatala during the mid-Atlantic slave trade, certainly into the Black Spiritualist Church, certainly into modern day ATR practice and tradition. We still see some statuary for Obatala that has strong St. John the Baptist imagery on it, that has strong Moses imagery on it, but are clearly were created to represent Obatala. Certainly in the last 30 years, these statues are being created very specifically to meet the needs of the community who supports them. And certainly your botanicas are going to buy and keep in stock those things that we utilize, that we support. Their basis for being open, the botanicas, is not to teach the tradition. Let me be clear about that. Our botanicas are not there to teach the tradition, to be the tradition. In most case scenarios, maybe in the rarest case of scenario, FNF Botanica, May Felix, and his beloved family, may they rest in room. Some of you know the story. The story is becoming a bit of a legend. Yes, three members of the same family passed within 30 days, and so FNF Botanica still remains unopened on Broad Street here in this beautiful, historic, legendary, and most haunted city of New Orleans, Louisiana. But that's a rare occasion where we saw a community of Latinx sharing and teaching and imparting not just general botanica supplies, but indeed Lukumi, Santeria, Ifa training and understanding. But it's a rarity, and particularly in today's internet botanica environment, the majority are selling stuff, and aren't really in position to teach it, consecrate it, really give you a full understanding. Greetings, Imani Sankofa. I'm loving your new and latest avatar as well. Beautiful photo. That's a wonderful avatar. Hafaz, you ain't updated your avatar in some time. Enzo Khalifa, I'm not even going to start. Craig Burns, come on now. The Goddess Initiative. Let's get some new avatars going, y'all. Martha Martinez, I'm scrolling up now. Now, Queen of Sheba, I can't say, but I like your present avatar for sure. Now, I can't say how old it is yet, but in about 90 days or so, I'll check back. Your avatar. Yes, indeed. Our avatars, yeah, you ain't changed our avatar in a decade, and you know it, bro. Come on. Like, come on. You ain't changed that picture in a minute. Come on now. Come on now. Our avatars are our face to the world. Now I ain't gonna play. You're looking at an avatar that's a year old. So I'm gonna update mine, but that's a year old. That was the blessing of the streets uh, during this pandemic last year. I didn't do it this year because of the pandemic, but I'm certainly going to update that photo probably by the next show. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Because sometimes I interpret the outdated avatars and the non-specific avatars that never show a face as a form of internet hiding. But that's your business. I'm just saying. But when we think about certainly Obatala and how its traditions and practices and references made its way into the lexicon of tradition here, particularly here in the US, and goes unacknowledged um, without stating, sort of again speaks to Obatala as spilled expansion and extension. The cyclic model that I often reference of the universe is a radical alternative to the standard sort of Big Bang inflationary theory that I grew up with and that many people of my generation and older were sort of taught as sort of set in stone when we were educated, in which space and time exist indefinitely. The rapidly accelerating inflationary phase is avoided, and the universe undergoes periodic epochs of expansion and contraction in the cyclic model of the universe. Expansion and contraction. And so, expansion, extension, spilled might be a way that we look at the sky, might be a way that we look at the cosmos. And certainly, indeed, is a way that one of the ways in which I envision Obatala when I close my eyes and I'm in meditation. I'm often transported out beyond the solar system to the stars, to that moving Milky Way, to that moving galaxy image that many of us can sort of bring up in our imaginations. And if you have problems doing that, they got uh, YouTube videos, they got, photographs that can help your imagination to sort of envision beyond your limitations physically within your imagination. And throughout human history, there have been three cosmic paradigms commonly invoked to explain the nature of the universe. Each has been embodied in a modern cosmological model based on Einstein's general theory of relativity. One is the notion of an unchanging universe, in which underlies Einstein's static universe model, the first cosmological model proposed after the introduction of general relativity, and the steady state model of Hoyle, Gold, and Bondi. This paradigm has been set aside because of Hubble's discovery that the universe is expanding, and the discovery by Penzias and Wilson of the cosmic microwave background, direct evidence of an earlier, hotter, and denser epoch. The paradigm of a created universe in which space and time sprang from nothingness and steadily evolved underlies today's standard model of cosmology, the Big Bang, inflationary picture. Although the creation process and the first instance are not well understood, the sequence of events following are well defined, and the predictions of the model appear to be in exquisite agreement with current observations. Finally, we come to the cyclic universe, the notion that the universe undergoes periodic epochs of evolution followed by a sequence of events that brings the universe back, phoenix like, to its initial state. If we think about the Aborigines, if we think Aboriginal people of the world, if we think about indigenous creation stories, the Hopi, for example, tell, I believe, four world creations and destructions, or maybe three. I could be leaping ahead, but certainly multiple creations and destructions of our earth-based reality. And the cyclic concept is at least as old as recorded history. For example, cyclic evolution as essential part of the ancient Hindu cosmology In the 1920s and 1930s, a version was explored in the context of modern cosmology by Tolman and others. That version entailed an overdensed, closed universe in which our three-dimensional world expands and contracts at regular intervals. The idea was set aside because, as Tolman first pointed out, the entropy produced during each cycle would be concentrated during the contracting phase, adding to the entropy produced in the earlier phase. The entropy density at the end of each contraction causes the next expansion cycle to be longer than the one before. The cycles cannot be identical as originally imagined. Instead, extra, extrapolating backwards from the present entropy, the universe would have undergone smaller and smaller cycles in the past, converging rapidly towards zero duration. The total age of the universe would not be significantly different from a universe with no cycles. Since the main purpose of considering a cyclic universe is to push back the beginning indefinitely, the entropy problem was viewed as a serious impediment and discouraged further work. Today, we would also discard this idea because it requires an overdense universe, whereas observations inform us that the mass density is only about one-fourth of the critical value required to cycle. But in the last year, however, there has been a return of the cyclic universe in a new 21st century version based on recent ideas developed in fundamental superstring physics. And I've discussed superstring physics and quantum metaphysics on this show many times um, over the years. So my regular listening audience would not be surprised by this. Some of my newer listeners might be still trying to figure out how I blend all this together with voodoo. And indeed, voodoo can be looked at as a science when we understand the nature of Odu or the Fa, Afa, Ifa, depending on what language you're speaking, and the nature of that system. We're looking at math. And so certainly there's a dynamic of physics and the reality of the universe that exists inherently in what we do in magic, in ATR, and in many of these voodoo related traditions. And so the cyclic concept, being as old as, you know, recorded history itself, is not new. You know, we say new age, but new age is really not new. It's a new examination, if you will, a new look at something that our ancient ancestors clearly had a deeper understanding of, that we just have not been able to document or yet find a footprint for. So the new cyclical universe appears capable of reproducing all of the successful predictions of the standard Big Bang and inflationary model with the same exquisite precision, even though the key elements that shape the large scale structure of the universe occur at different epochs and temperatures and entail different physical processes. And I look at the weather, i.e., our lives, living life on life's terms, entail different epochs or different seasons. Some of us hit a high at different periods of our life. Some of us hit the lows in different periods of our life. Different temperatures. Some of us run hot. Some of us run cold. Some of us fluctuate at different stages of our existence and our life paths, and certainly entail different physical processes, different physical resources. Some of us, you know, born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Some of us have had to work for and struggle for and fight for, So again, I don't find it, as nor did our ancient ancestors find it, a large stretch between what's going on in the cosmos and the cosmic universe and what's happening each day, each moment in our waking realities here as uh, gods in clay vessels having this human earth experience. And a motivation for considering an alternate is that today's standard model has become more complicated. The initial Big Bang model assumed a universe that emerges full of radiation and density and uniformity and uniformly cools and condenses and destructions over time. However, after the Big Bang, the universe should have been turbulent, chaotic, and disordered, whereas the observed universe seems remarkably homogeneous and uniform on large scales. Our sun rises and sets as it should. Our planet continues to turn as it should. Praise the ancestors. We aren't necessarily dodging, comets and falling matter from the sky, though we know that there's falling matter coming from the sky at every moment of our waking existence. So a period of inflationary expansion has been added, which stretches the universe at exponentially fast rates, smoothing out the initial inhomogeneous warps and curvatures. It also leaves behind tiny wrinkles in the distribution of matter and energy that later produce the observed fluctuations in the cosmic microwave background temperature and seed the formation of galaxies. The inflation requires adding a hypothetical field, the inflation with specific properties that enable it to induce an finite amount of exponential expansion and then decay into particles that form our present universe. But adding the inflation is not enough. We have recently discovered that we must add yet another component known as dark energy. Dark energy is different than dark matter, and we've discussed that also in this shared sacred space on many occasions. Dark matter, which is gravitationally self attractive, that's important from a quantum metaphysical perspective, that dark matter is gravitationally self attractive. Negative energy sucks in like a vacuum more negative energy. It's a reason that negative energy seems to congeal in people, places, and things. Certain people, certain neighborhoods, within certain families, within certain work structures, negative energy seems to congeal together. Just like light energy, positive energy feeds and creates more energy, more light energy. It has the exact opposite gravitational effect as dark matter. And so, dark matter, which is gravitationally self attractive and joins together with ordinary matter to form galaxies, dark energy is gravitationally self repulsive and causes the expansion of the universe to accelerate. And recent measurements of the cosmic microwave background and of distant supernovae indicate that over 70% of the universe consists of dark energy today. Its existence was not anticipated, nor is it explained by the Big Bang or inflation. So in the 1970s, we knew nothing of dark energy and dark matter from a scientific perspective. It would have been a part of a sort of a magical conversation, but certainly not a scientific conversation. And rather, it is simply an ingredient which must be added ad hoc in a precise amount to match observations. We do not know if dark energy is stable or unstable, so we cannot determine whether the universe will accelerate forever or not. All told, then, the Standard Model has required an increasing number of assumptions in the last 2 decades, not only about there being um, not only about there being a beginning of space and time, but also the addition of inflation fields and dark energy with specifically tuned properties. Seeing these complications inspires the theorist to look for a new approach. So the new cyclic universe model, all things move in a circle, a model proposed by Neil Turok of Cambridge, turns the conventional picture topsy-turvy. Space and time exists forever. The Big Bang is not the beginning of time. Rather, it is a bridge to a pre-existing contracting era. The universe undergoes endless cycles in sequence of cycles in which it contracts in a big crunch and reemerges in an expanding Big Bang, with trillions of years of evolution in between. The temperature and density of the universe does not become infinite at any point in the cycle. Indeed, they never exceed a finite bound, about a trillion degrees. No high energy inflation has taken place since the Big Bang. The current homogeneity and flatness were created by events that occurred before the most recent Big Bang. The seeds for galaxy formation were created by instabilities arising as the universe was collapsing towards a big crunch prior to our Big Bang. The new cyclic model is also radically different from the cyclic model discussed by Tolman and others in the 1920s and 1930s, or from cyclic models of ages past. The cycles are not completely independent. As described above, the key events which set the large-scale structure um, of our present universe occurred a cycle ago, and events that are occurring now are setting the stage for the cycle to come. The universe is infinite and flat, rather than finite and closed. I'm going to say that again. The universe is infinite and flat, rather than finite and closed. Because of the flatness, the total energy density in the new cyclic universe is equal to the critical value in accordance with observations. Negative potential energy, rather than an overdensity of matter, is what causes the reversal from expansion to contraction. Right after the bang, the universe undergoes the usual period of radiation and matter um, di- um, domination, followed by a long period of dark energy induced accelerated expansion, presumably the acceleration that has been recently detected. The accelerated expansion naturally dilutes the density of entropy, entropy, black holes, and other debris produced in the previous cycle, so that the universe is virtually empty before the next bounce. And during the contraction phase, the matter and radiation density remain infinitesimally small for reasons explained later. So, unlike Tolman's case, the universe is returned to nearly pristine vacuum conditions before the Big Crunch, rather than filled with entropy. During the bounce from Big Crunch to Big Bang, the density is replenished with new matter and radiation that serves as the fuel for the subsequent hot Big Bang phase. New quarks and leptons are created that produce new hydrogen to create new stars. And after 15 billion years or so, the dark energy begins to dominate again, and cosmic acceleration begins anew until the universe returns to a pristine vacuum once again. Now, again, to my long-term listeners, they get it. They've heard this before. They understand how and why I speak in voodoo. I speak in spiritualism. I speak in quantum metaphysics. I speak in math. I speak in colors. I speak in symbolism and how they interrelate and interconnect. My new listeners, you might have to play catch up just a little bit, but for me, it's a bit self-explanatory, because when we close our eyes and go into that dark space and use your imagination if you have to, you're going into the dark recesses of the universe. The microcosm mirrors the macrocosm, and we see light at some point. We see color at some point. And not just that that's leaking through your eyelids, but I'm talking about in your third eye space. And then the ability to see, feel, and experience the past in that moment, to see, feel, and experience the future, but in that, only in that present moment in time space. It goes away when we wake up. It goes away when we break concentration. It dissipates when we break focus, and we return to sort of our interwoven clay and God-like human existence. But certainly we have those moments when we can be still and experience our breath, not just do it involuntarily, but experience and hear and listen to and experience our breathing. Sometimes we count when we breathe, and then really go into inter space, which is where our access to inter and intra dimensional consciousness begins, in the head, in the ori, in the consciousness. And so it is there that we can either create, envision, imagine stars and galaxy in space, but indeed it is natural to envision stars, galaxy, space, unless your brain, your mind is preoccupied with imagery of the past, of the future, which have their place, which have their meaning, which must be explored, but don't really exist. All that truly exists is that which is in this present moment in time space. And it's in that creative space that we have the power and the ability to manipulate energy that then creates and recreates a reality that best mirrors our interests. And so it is why I spend so much time moving between the veils, if you will, moving between the sciences, if you will. Lady Owl says, so the cycles overlap into the present and eventually the future. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like our past overlaps into our present. The memories, sometimes the joy, sometimes the heartbreak, sometimes the regrets overlap into our present. And when it overlaps too much and we live too much in the past, it then can lead to being stuck. It then can lead to symptoms of sadness, depression, um, um, negative feelings. And certainly when we live in that overlap in the future, it can lead to an anxiety, worry about things that have yet to come, have yet to truly manifest. And our brain can piece together why it's a probability. Well, this has happened, that has happened. I can't trust this one, I can't trust that. And we can easily, in our thinking, piece together the probability of that mishap. But certainly it is not real until it's a mishap. It's not real. And certainly in that creative space, we have time, allowance to create a reality that mirrors our best interests. In the last episode, we discussed to prepare and to anticipate. We have to prepare and anticipate the next Hurricane Katrina, those of us who choose to continue to live in New Orleans. You have to prepare and anticipate the big one if you choose to continue to live in the Los Angeles area. You have to prepare and anticipate certain climate changes if you choose to continue to stay wherever you are living and existing right now on the planet. Lady Alice is certainly with me, and I appreciate that. She says the time is speeding up so fast that certain past things are intertwined into the now that she has experienced. I absolutely agree with you, beloved. Thank you for your confirmation. Oh, I can do a whole show on the repetition of numbers, 1111, and other uh, repetitions of numbers that we seem to see more and pay attention to more now than we ever did as children. I don't, and when I say children, us children of the 60s and the 70s. Um, I don't remember, I don't recall, sort of ever sort of seeing numbers in that way. Now you might say, okay, well, you had clocks back then that had hands that moved, before digital even. Um, but certainly even in just in natural spaces, the seeing of duplication of numbers certainly does have some relationship to technology and the advancement of technology um, in the world. So certainly in our minds, in our consciousness, but certainly reinforced, confirmed, if you will, through technology. And so I think about the cosmos when I think about Obatala. I think about stars and the creations of stars. I think about star people, star galaxies. I think about how the stars are not as they seem to us, that the stars that we see physically with our eyes at night have moved on hundreds of thousands of years ago, and we're seeing a reflection of that light finally making its way to our location. So, where are they exactly, and how far away are they really? And when we look at that sky, that is a shadow of the past. What does it tell us really about the future and the existence of the future and that which might come for the universe? As I suggested a moment ago, it all seems rather consistent and homogeneous and in balance and well put together. And we live and we breathe and we have vegetation and we get sunlight and rain when we need it. And for the most part, we should show gratitude. But certainly when we begin to really look at the universe that we live and exist in, we could do a podcast on chaos magic. We certainly can do a series of podcasts on chaos magic and what chaos magic is, and how indeed we are actively living and participating in chaos magic. Every day that we wake up and are not hit by an asteroid, or a comet, or nuked by some, unknown invader from some other region of the universe. There's just so much more of our minds, our consciousness that we still cannot explain. And I said that in concert with there's so much in our universe, in our cosmos that we don't understand, that still remains yet unexplained. And so the potential for greatness, the potential for development, the potential for creating and recreating a reality that mirrors my best interests is only fostered by that awareness. It's only fed by that awareness. It only gives me hope, it gives me a sense of control, if you will, in that awareness. No matter what the temporal condition might appear, no matter what the illusion might be presenting, we're already in motion. We're already at the next location by the time we identify the present location. And some of us on our spiritual journey feel like we're playing a game of catch up. You know, in the minute you think you figured out what you need to figure out, the game has changed. You know, no, the game hasn't changed, but it's evolved. It continues to evolve, much like the universe continues to move. The planet moves at. I need a FOI who's good with the numbers in here right now. The planet moves at a particular ratio. It moves at a particular speed through the universe. Light has its speed through the universe. Consciousness has its speed, you know, in our brains, in our heads. We think, you know, at a particular speed. We talk at a very different speed. We walk at a very different speed. So we are consciously, not consciously, we are constantly in motion, and we should be conscious of it, that we are consciously in motion. Our beloved Nei Foko is out there on the road, is conscious of his constantly being in motion. But he's also a brother who's conscious of how our brains and our consciousness is constantly in motion. And so the minute we stop dreaming, and some of you complain you aren't remembering your dreams, check your spirit life, check your creative life, check your imaginations. The minute we are unable to imagine, you lose hope. The minute you're unable to imagine, you put down your tools of self-creation, of recreating a reality, and then you sort of go along with the motions. What happens? You then must accept, or find a way to get along in what happens. So the seat of empowerment is to be a co-creator in our reality, to be a co-creator in your self-creation of reality that mirrors your best interests. I'm certainly grateful for everyone in attendance. I know I kind of caught you off guard. Sometimes I'm really consistent, and then other times I'm overladen with work, and you never show up. I get it, and I'm grateful that you all keep checking. Even if I'm not here, you all check. Oh, well, he must be here. Let me plug in, and I appreciate that. I do. I'm grateful. We had a full house yesterday, and I'm grateful for that. But I told you all I was a bit in rare form, and I will be more often and more consistently moving forward at the noon hour for this power lunch, this revolutionary Hoodoo New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. And truly and indeed, all is a blessing. Truly and indeed, all is a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils. For it is all just an illusion, beloved. It is all just a test. One of the greatest divine mysteries of our life cycle. Why are we here? What is we here for? What is our purpose? Why, why, am I waking up in the morning to live this human existence as a God in this clay, weak vessel? What's my purpose? That is humanity's question. That doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you different. It doesn't make you argumentative. It doesn't make you out of step with things. It actually puts you in the seat of power. When you ask those questions and understand that we are here to explore, we're here to explore, and we're here to explore those questions as gods living within a plastic, illusionary universe. It's full of illusion. Or if I had enough time to teach biology, if I had enough time to teach optics of how our eyes work, and how what we see is primarily an illusion, an inverted illusion, with a series of light passing through objects at certain ratios, and depending on our positioning within the ratio, we see certain things. Some of us have seen and participated in a popular social media gag that's primarily a paragraph of text scrambled with certain constant letters being consistent and other letters within the dynamics of each word being scrambled, and how your brain is able to still uh, articulate what's being spoken, in the scrambled language. And again, it speaks to how much of an illusion the physical reality truly is. We put so much stock in, is this chair going to hold me up? We put so much stock in, the safety of our cars, you know, when driven appropriately and in the right hands. But we put a lot of stock in that. We put a lot of stock in the fact that, a sinkhole don't open up underneath our house or our property at any given moment. Certain residents of Florida don't have that comfort zone anymore. Uh, if you live in Los Angeles, you certainly don't have a set in stone comfort zone about the stability of the ground beneath your feet. If you are of a certain age, you have experienced the sudden movement and sometimes absence of the ground beneath your feet. If you've ever been to Six Flags or any of the amusement parks, they have this, it's like a huge tumbler, like a huge cup, but it's a tower-like structure, and you go in there and it's circular, and you put your back against the wall and everybody lines up with their back against the wall, and then it starts to spin around, and all of a sudden the floor drops out underneath you, and no one falls. Everyone stays in place because of science. Call it magic, call it voodoo, but it's science. It's the science of pressure and gravity and force and motion, and you stick to the wall until the ride slows down. Some of you have been on this ride, and the floor returns, and you're in place. So our quote unquote reality is such an illusion that our brain is sophisticated enough, was created to be sophisticated enough to piece together. Yes, Lady Owl, I say it all the time here late. Our brain is faster than the speed of light, literally. And so, you're ugly, uh, you stupid, you don't know anything, you know, you need to shut up, and then reinforce that with some backhands and some aggressive behavior, from the parent, from the teacher, from the overseer, from the guardian, then that moment, those words, those energies can be duplicated like a 5G movie in your brain, as Lady Owl says, literally at the speed of light. So one dark look from somebody, one shady little comment from somebody, you're hearing way beyond the moment. You're hearing a repeat of something that was once said to you, something you experienced, and your brain is able to repeat that literally at the speed of light. We can't talk that fast. I can only type, I think, 65 to 72 words a minute. But your brain can say those negative words, can repeat those negative videos literally at the speed of light. And that's why changing our minds sometimes can be a challenge. Changing our consciousness can be a challenge. Changing how we think can be a challenge. Changing our habits can be a challenge. Thank you so much, Enzo Khalifa, a mediumship. I certainly appreciate that. And you are true to your word because you're not just present here, but you're present in Twitter, which I certainly appreciate. So yeah, she hears me, as do many others. You know, if I'm missing here, then find me in social media, and social media will usually tell you exactly what I'm doing, what's on my mind, what's going on. And certainly my godchildren, if I'm missing, it's because you ain't checked in. Now, my godchildren can check in, my students can check in, my clients who are doing work check in at least once a week, sometimes more often than that. And they have means to check in. So I appreciate that, Enzo Khalifa. I'm grateful for you. Shamafia is also present in, I think, in the TikTok, in the Instagram, Shamafia everywhere. Yes, indeed. Appreciate you, Shamafia, beloved. I try to be, and I try to offer texts and books and research. For so long, we've just learned to sit in the church, sit in the synagogue, sit in the mosque, and hear it said, and hear it regurgitated, and hear it repeated. And there's usually no hands on demonstration, literally or figuratively. We now at least have this virtual space for self demonstration, you know, to share the wealth of information, not just from our living library, but from all of our living libraries. And we no longer have to just accept what the preachers say. We no longer have to just accept, what's being said, because we do have access to virtual libraries and books and texts, but also people. And so we can reach out to leaders and elders and pastors and ministers and priests. And I'm surprised y'all don't do more of that and speak your truth, speak your mind, ask your questions. In some cases, make your demands, for change. So we certainly appreciate you all. All right, now, Lady Al. All right, girl. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. More is being said than the words on the paper. Ashe, beloved Ashe. All is a blessing. So I'm certainly grateful. We've done what, an hour and 45 minutes. Okay. I tried to, as you all know, I tried to tone down the 3 hour shows. Was just too much on the body, the mind, the schedule. The 3 hour shows was just too much. Though y'all would sit through them, some of y'all would sit through them 3 hour shows and would continue on. Oh my goodness. Oh, may my cousin Oloye rest in a room. E by E, oh my God. Otun, beloved, where are you, beloved? Come on in. But yeah, we them 3 hour shows was something. The 2 hour shows be something. But I'm learning to honor and acknowledge not just my time and my schedule, but also yours. But more importantly, your energy. And so I'm very responsive to energy. I don't know how well you all have figured that out. I'm very responsive to energy. Often, what you all say and do and demonstrate determines when I am here, determines what I do in this space and how much of it or how little of it I do. Has a lot to do with you all. I was asked to shut down, you know, doing readings in the broadcast. My audience asked me to stop doing that. They said you all were a distraction to the show. People would come with issues, certainly important issues to you, but those issues weren't important to a global audience. And my listeners asked me not to do that. Some of you all just wanted to be heard, and it's okay to be heard. I invite you to be heard. I shared the link every day for you all to call in, turn your webcams on, come on in. And some of you would. Certainly, Neophyte Bokur did and was a critical asset and still is a critical asset as a co host to the show. Um, certainly, certainly, the God's Initiative. But they got distracted sometimes by how you all not you all who are here listening to me right now, but some of the people who would wander in, who were looking for a good witch fight, or good, how to cast spells broadcast, that had no real substance to it, because you can find that all day, every day on TikTok and Instagram. They'll teach you how to do all kind of spells. They'll teach you how to do your tarot cards. And oh, okay, so I don't have to do that. There's plenty of people out there doing that. And I'm sure if y'all wanted that, you're there feeding that. And I look at the followers and the numbers for those platforms, and okay, y'all do that there. But this community did not want to hear that. And sometimes the conversations would just, oh my God, would just disintegrate just into some foolishness that, the newcomers didn't want to hear. Yes, we had spamming distractions. There was too many spamming distractions. We had somebody pop porn into the middle of the broadcast. Almost got a strike for that. The final straw for me, initially I said I was not going to say this on air, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it today. The initial straw for me was Reverend Ike's platform. May Reverend Ike rest in heaven. Got great respect for Reverend Ike and what Reverend Ike did and what Reverend Ike came to demonstrate. But his legacy, his people, who running the damn thing right now, no, 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 no. So I got a copyright, my one and only copyright strike on this account is from Reverend Ike's people for sharing Reverend Ike material. So I don't talk about Reverend Ike at all anymore. I don't talk about any of Reverend Ike's material anymore. I don't reference his history, his story, his tradition, nothing. Nothing. This probably will be the final say so. Oh, Reverend Ike. Okay. So yeah, I was asked to stop doing it. Um, yeah, those episodes were classic. I certainly miss both Otan and Oloye, and what we did. And I'm grateful that we did it, and it's an archive. Certainly. Um, I understand Otan's position not to want to move forward right now. I get it, and she's empathic. So I don't want to put anything on her um, more emotionally than she wants to deal with. Certainly. But yeah, we haven't talked about it a whole lot, Enzo Khalifa, here in this space. We have, but not a whole lot. But yeah, we all certainly do miss Oloye, and certainly may he rest in our room. And we learn, we grow. We know he's ever present now with us in the spirit realm, and he will at some point, acknowledge with us, as an ancestor, and we will create more and better and continue to move forward, with the shows. I would love to have more young people actively involved with the show in some co-hosting capacity moving forward. But we'll have to see. Many of you know I'm working on this coming production, TV production. And so that's going to change a lot in terms of the dynamics of my time, my schedule. I'm going to have to, again, as we all do, reevaluate priorities in terms of scheduling and time. Certainly, my family, my godchildren, my inner circle, they're going to contact me regardless. So I'm going to hear from them, and we're going to sup and have service and communion and ceremony regardless. But those of you who are often still wondering, still trying to figure it out, still trying to research, please do. And I have quite the footprint um, across the spectrum, the internet, TV, documentaries, movies, film, uh, everywhere. Certainly, certainly, but I'm really going to have to pay attention to my time and how I um, move if I'm going to carry what's being gifted to me right now um, by the ancestors, by the Most High, you know, by God. I'm certainly grateful to Mawo Lisa. I'm certainly grateful to Mawo and Lisa for those who were at my last podcast, but certainly grateful to Olodumare and uh, the great creator gods that continue to bless and show us that, uh, like Obatala, it is spilled, and then we get to experience the expansion and the extension of it. We get to be a part of the spilling, the expansion, and the extension. Some might say we were spilled, and now through us is brought expansion and extension. Thanks and praises to Obatala for the spirit and power and presence of Obatala and what Obatala means to us today in this modern time, what Obatala brings to us today in this present time. Here in the West, for God's sakes, we certainly am truly, truly grateful for the survival of that knowledge, that power that is Obatala. The initiated ones have palm oil. The uninitiated ones have blood. This, the Ifa Oracle divine for Obatala, that decides to offer sacrifice to his heavenly children. Ifa says the blessings of prosperity, the blessings of manifold success, the blessing of victory. Ifa directs him to offer sacrifice of longevity for his children, the sacrifice of dry materials that includes dry rats, dried fruit, obi, orubo, water, snail, pigeon, ori. Obatala heard and offered a sacrifice of long life because his male and female children, that was how they got victory over death and sickness. Hence, the heavenly children of Obatala were blessed, and so the chant goes, initiated ones have abundant oil. Initiated ones have abundant oil, while uninitiated ones have abundant blood, while uninitiated ones have abundant blood. Albinos are natural prophets from God, sent here to direct our spiritual steps. And that's important to say because we wonder why such an atrocity of the killing of albinos in modern day Africa is happening. It indeed has its roots in witchcraft, how I define witchcraft, how my ministry defines witchcraft. And so they understand that there's a power latent in all humanity, but certainly albinos have their own natural innate power. But it's not for us to dissect them, to disavow them, to harm them, as is being done with the witches in the witch community, who are doing just the most ungodly things, that these people now have to live in encampments for their own security, for their own protection. There's a second school of thought that's believed that Obatala was a male deity, one of the greatest powers, a leading figure who led other deities from the heaven above to the physical plane of existence. And it was believed that Orishala was the only divinity given a place at the right hand of Olodumare in his majestic kingdom. Eni Otan Eludua. Ini Otan Eludua, in his majestic kingdom. And because of his greatness, praise names are given to him from town to town, village to village, path to path, house to house. And so Obatala, according to tradition, is called Alabalaisi. Alabalaisi, meaning the giver of authority or the holder of absolute authority. So we give honor and thanks and praise to Obatala. We certainly acknowledge our ancestors for whose shoulders we now stand upon, for who give us. Obatala said they have crafted our bodies from clay on the potter's wheel. Our ancestors certainly crafted our bodies within our DNA chain. And so we're indeed grateful to the Most High creators and all that is created within the creation that gives us our ability to be co-creators with the Most High, co-creators with our ancestors. And so I'm grateful, I'm thankful, I'm moving forward. Until next time, all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils. Lady Alice asking, does New Orleans, I'm going to do a little grammatical correction. Does New Orleans have powwows for us? And if so, when? She would like to come to one. And would this be Mardi Gras in place of this? Okay. Yeah, I would say first acknowledge, respect, um, befriend the Black masking community. I would say that generally, number one. Number two, befriend a Black masking Indian, male or female. Um, Learn about the culture, learn about the tradition, because indeed, we ceremonially come out Mardi Gras Day, but we sort of come out um, in a mock war mode Mardi Gras Day. We're sort of in opposition with Babylon Mardi Gras Day. So we're in opposition with Mardi Gras. We are a Black carnival. And so we're kind of aggressive, kind of warlike. The Indians, mock battle. Sometimes that spills over into reality. So that's not necessarily the best day. It's a great day to photograph, maybe, and to be present. And it is an adult sport. Let me be clear. People bring their children, particularly people who are in this community, bring their children. But if you're new to this, I wouldn't necessarily call this a family-friendly sport. It's a lot of people on the street Mardi Gras Day. It's a lot of people on the street in our community, particularly Mardi Gras Day. So it's great for photographers, adults, people who are prepared to do a lot of walking. But I would prepare by befriending. Um, Leading up to that, we have Indian, weeks of Indian practices, which similar to a powwow, not quite the powwow, but similar. We beat drums, we chant, we sing, we honor, we learn, we pass down the traditions, if you will, in a bit of a coded way. The participants kind of understand what's going on. Long-term viewers have some degree of understanding of what's going on. Certainly, the community that sows and supports and feeds us, they kind of know what's going on. But the newcomer might not quite understand everything that's happening. But then there are Black masking Indians who travel, go prior to Mardi Gras Day, to powwows with Aboriginal and Indigenous people. And so we have a relationship to Aboriginal, Indigenous lands and people here in Louisiana, but also in other states. And so then there are bigger powwows, more in line with your language usage, quote unquote powwow. Then there are indeed sweat lodges powwows that are happening that you then have access to, uh, certainly by way of invitation, and acknowledgement by the participants um, of the ceremony. So that's a great question. You gave me a great opportunity to tell a little history and tell a little story. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I indeed appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I am a former masking Yellow Pocahontas Indian. Daryl Montana retired. I went on, created my own group. He has since come back, and now we're all kind of doing our thing. But I certainly appreciate that, Queen Sheba. Um, yeah, thank you so much. That suit was featured for a year here locally at the Presbyterian Museum in Jackson Square, the oldest Louisiana State Museum. And then my Black Hawk suit is now on its way to being featured for a year in Paris, France, at the Bradley Museum. That's not the full name. And my French is a little bit rusty, and my fingers are only moving at a certain pace in terms of my ability to pull it up right now while I still got a little bit of airtime for my Paris and my French speaking listeners. I certainly don't want to neglect that in the process. Um, Advertising, marketing. I don't want to. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time pulling that up right now. Give me a second, y'all. I'll certainly have it together by the next show. Now, technology is what it is, but sometimes, y'all, it don't do what we need it to do, or we ain't sure how to pull up in the moment what we need to pull up. I've got it listed, I'm sure, under some kind of name right now that I'm too distracted to recall. But I'll certainly have it in the future, and I'll put it up in social media. The name of the museum in Paris where the show. Oh, here we go. It's called Musée du Croix Brandly in Paris, France, and it will be featured there for a year. So it's on its way now. I mean, it's a serious deal. They've got historians, archaeological investigators, biologists who are examining anything organic that might be on the suit. Paris has much more strict rules and regulations than the US, apparently, as it relates to fur and animal skins and parts and, beads and things of that sort that might be made from um, natural organic animal material. But it'll be featured at Musée du Croix Brandly in Paris, France for a year. And to say I'm grateful for the opportunity is an understatement. I mean, to be featured in a museum anywhere in the world, I think is a big deal. And to have that archive for future dexterity is a major deal. I'm humbled by it. The idea of that is not lost on me. But then to have it to go to Paris and be a part of a bigger Pan African diasporic footprint and demonstration, it's just overwhelming. I'm kind of lost for words about how I feel about it. I'm just grateful to be a part of it, and have that opportunity to share my own experience in Black Hawk Voodoo. It's a Black Hawk masking Indian, as a New Orleans masking, Black masking Indian. I'm just grateful to be a part of it. Um, Again, I'm a successful transplant who's been blessed to do things that I could not have envisioned um, 25 years ago. So thank you. I certainly appreciate it. I appreciate you. I'll keep you all updated about that. I'm sure they're going to have some kind of video or advertisement postings or something from Paris that I'll be able to throw up in social media at some point, and you all will be able to see it. So thank you kindly. It's 5 past the hour. I certainly appreciate you all. If you missed yesterday's podcast, please go back and listen to it. We had a packed house. It was a great show. I will be forward again at high noon US Central Standard Time. I hope to meet you here in this shared sacred space. I'm certainly grateful to each and every one of you for the opportunity. And know that I am available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by email at DivinePrince at houseofthedivineprince.com. I will not respond to requests for appointments and work and initiations or any of that in social media. I just don't. I'll say, hey, you need to email me. So please email me. I appreciate you. Mixed Sage, greetings, beloved. Yes, I appreciate you. Yes, Neophyte Bokur. I can't wait to see it again myself in this new Parisian environment. So reach out to me, use my contact link, use my direct email. I'm grateful for you. Until next time, all is a blessing. My appointments, you know who you are. Be on point, be on time. Let's keep it moving today. All is a blessing. Ashe, Asheo, and Ashe.